Hi everyone, and welcome to Global Business Evolution, where we talk about the trends, happenings, and practices in business today. I am Tani, the CEO of Human Capital Matters, an international management consulting, strategy, and human resources firm. We deal with everything from strategy development, leadership matters, online learning, and recruitment, to name a few things. To find out more about what we do, click on the link below. I will be sharing some tools, tips, and insights that will help you in the world of business. So, like and subscribe to my channel for all the latest happenings in the business world. Today, we'll be talking about
becoming a manager for the first time involves a change in focus. You were probably promoted because you were really good in your previous non-managerial job. Your number one focus would have been on the successful delivery of your tasks. But the minute that you become a manager, you have to realize that it is not just about you anymore. Now your focus is to enable others to accomplish and deliver on their tasks. Your performance is tied to your team's performance. If your team succeeds, that's wonderful. The credit is yours, but you will have to share this limelight, especially if you want your team to work hard for you in the future. However, if your team fails, then that failure is viewed to be predominantly yours. In this section, we will explore the mindset shift and change in focus required for you to firmly leave your days of being an individual contributor far behind. The sooner that you can understand the implications of this shift, the sooner you can navigate the complexity of managing people. As an individual contributor, you are responsible for yourself. You might be part of a team, and yes, you will have to contribute towards their success, but in essence, you are responsible for managing yourself. At this stage, you are focused on increasing your personal effectiveness, competency, and performance. Depending on what your career aspirations are, you might start thinking about preparing for your next role. A decision needs to be made at this point, and note that this decision can be made later on up the ladder as well, but it does get a little bit harder. At this point, you will decide if you are preparing for a leadership or management role or whether you want to be a technical specialist or expert. As a technical specialist, you will most probably continue managing yourself, but in work that has an increasingly larger degree of complexity. You might have to manage a few people, but this is mostly as an expert with sapiential authority, i.e., you can issue out instructions, give guidance, etc., have the right to be heard by reason of your superior knowledge and experience, but you are not directly responsible for managing the person. The ultimate responsibility for the outcome of the employee's work lies with the manager, but you will be the expert that people will come to for advice and guidance. You have the right to advice, but not to retaliate or address it if the advice is not taken. That will be the manager's responsibility, as mentioned before. If you chose to be a manager, it is at this point that you would have started to learn the leadership language of the organization that you are in. Some of the aspects that you will focus on are things like establishing credibility, delivering results, embracing flexibility, doing what is needed to get the outcome desired, within reason, legally and ethically, of course. Being able to tolerate complexity and dealing with increasingly more complex issues. As a manager of others, you will face a different set of challenges. The first being where you have to make a mindset shift and change your focus as you will be transitioning from individual performance to managing other people. I'll talk a little bit more about this shift later. Here you have to start building your relationships, have a clear understanding of who all the stakeholders are and what level of influence they have on your success. You will need to learn about the strengths and weaknesses of your team, who will be individual contributors like you used to be not too long ago. You will need to learn how to delegate, how to deal with conflict, and how to resolve conflict. You will need to learn how to get the work that you want done through others. You will need to learn how to solve problems more effectively, but also you will have to learn how to guide others to solve problems and bring potential solutions to you rather than simply dump all their problems on your lap. The point of having a team is to distribute the work and problems in such a way as to ensure maximum productivity and performance. Some of the competencies you will be looking at here are things like leading a team to achieving success, how to motivate, coach, and develop others, confronting problem employees, embracing change and learning about diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and how to adapt to the people around you and develop your own unique management style. The next turn that you can make is that of becoming a manager of managers. That is, you will now be the person who leads other managers who themselves are managing predominantly independent contributors. Ram Charan, Steve Drotter, and James Noel authored a book called The Leadership Pipeline a few years ago. This book was originally written in 2000 but has since been updated and revised. This book refers to the leadership pipeline and the turns made for the different levels. In leading other managers, you will need to look at things like managing an increasing degree of organizational complexity, a wider spread of stakeholders, managing politics, selecting the right people who can become managers, developing them, and learning how to lead them for high performance. At this turn, you will need to hone your selling skills, as you will need to sell ideas to senior leaders and learn to negotiate effectively. You will start to see the organization as a system and thereby will have to learn to think and act systematically. Some of the teams that you manage might be geographically dispersed, and you will need to learn how to manage that. At this level, you will not only be managing change, but implementing it as well. In managing a function, you will be responsible for taking the organization's vision and objectives and making it relevant for your function. How does your function contribute to the organization's vision? And what then is the vision for your function? And what objectives will come out of that? You will need to learn how to balance short-term goals with those that are long-term and manage the consequences of those decisions. Here you will be responsible for aligning your people's strategy to that of the organization's. You will need to be a visionary to think and act strategically, working across the business and driving results. When you become a leader of an organization, you are responsible for setting organizational direction and for aligning your direct report to that strategic direction. You will create and articulate your vision, create and consistently drive strategic alignment as well. You are responsible for the culture of the organization, and ultimately the buck really does stop with you. Now, this was a brief explanation of the different levels of the leadership ladder. And if you want to find out more, take a look at the Leadership Pipeline, the book that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Let's now look more at what is required to make that first turn, that of transitioning from an individual contributor to that of a manager of others. The key difference between individual contribution and management lies in where you put your focus. As an individual, you focus most of your attention on your own success, development, and results. As a manager, you need to focus on how others will achieve success, what their development needs are, and what methods they can best use to achieve results. Your survival and success as a manager is dependent upon your ability to help others succeed. The emphasis is now on your ability to deliver results through others. As an individual contributor, your relationship with your team was that of a colleague or peer. As a manager, this changes. You are the boss and they are your subordinates. As an individual contributor, you take direction. As a manager, you're expected to give direction to your team. Using the analogy of an orchestra, your team plays various musical instruments based on their ability, skill, and experience. You, the conductor, instructs them on what to play, when to play, and at times on how to play. Your role is to pull the individual strands together, to create cohesion and deliver on what the audience came to hear. The rules of the game have changed. In order to become a good manager, you have to let go of that which helped you to thrive as an individual contributor. Managing yourself of being an individual contributor means learning how to show up to work on time, dressing appropriately, getting along with your co-workers, managing your time and priorities, keeping your boss happy, and following basic workplace etiquette. It also means learning how to solve problems, make decisions, autonomy, use good judgment, and control your emotions while collaborating with others in order to complete a task. Managing others means that you will spend a lot of your time planning, organizing, coordinating, guiding, directing, and telling. Your scope of work and span of control has become wider, and your deliverables have become greater. You will quickly realize that you simply cannot get everything done by yourself. You will need to delegate in order to ensure that everything that needs to get done gets done. Therefore, you have to have and be more people-focused than task-focused, as you have to guide, motivate, inspire, direct, and tell people whose role it is to be task-focused. The competencies that enable you to stand out as an individual contributor are then very different from what you would need to master in order to become a good manager. When I started my career as an HR officer many years ago, my concerns in retrospect were not that complex. I had a set of tasks that I had to deliver on both efficiently and effectively. I collaborated with people who had access to information I needed or who were responsible for actioning something that I needed them to do in order for me to complete my tasks. I collaborated, informed, and or consulted accordingly in order to ensure that my performance was of an excellent standard. My primary focus was to deliver on my tasks. I understood that I was a cog in a wheel, and while I was peripherally aware of the wheel, my efforts were focused on being the best cog that I could be. In my role as an HR officer, I was the face that people saw. I solved problems, gave advice, and found solutions. I engaged with my boss regularly in order to ensure that the advice I gave and the solutions I found were complementary to the people strategy of the organization. But my clients didn't always see that part of it. In their eyes, I was the problem solver. I was the one that was doing the things that they asked for, and I was the one they thanked. There was a direct correlation between effort and accolade, between performance and reward. When I transitioned to becoming a manager for the first time, I struggled with a very simple yet incredibly difficult concept. I could no longer solely rely on my intelligence, my own hands, and my ability to think things through and get things done. I had to rely on someone else's ability and capability. I had to work through others in order to deliver on my increased responsibilities. There was no clear line of sight between action and acknowledgement. In my mind, it looked like somebody else was getting all the credit for what I essentially was telling them to do. And even worse, because somebody else was executing, I felt like I was not doing anything, that I was a fraud. I'm not going to lie to you. This was really difficult for me to get my head around. I kept resetting to doing things on my own and running myself ragged. It took me a while to understand that I was doing something important. I was directing, I was guiding, and I was coordinating. Using the previous analogy, I was the conductor and I received recognition by how well the orchestra pulled together and delivered an outstanding performance.
I hope you enjoyed that. I tried to distill my many years of experience into bite-sized chunks. Needless to say, the learning never ends, and therefore there is so much more to this topic. I hope that you will join me to explore these topics further. Leave a comment and let me know what else you'd like to learn about. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel.